You can't know anything to be true unless you start with God.
The problem is that he's using this weird definition of truth, where things can only be described as true if you are absolutely certain about them. Given the potential that some kind of grand deceiver might exist, we can't be absolutely certain about anything, so this is a foolish standard to have. If we use a less restrictive definition of truth, we actually can know many things to be true, and therefore our worldview does not reduce to absurdity. But even if the atheistic worldview did reduce to absurdity, this wouldn't make it inaccurate, nor would it prove that a god necessarily exists. As Matt pointed out in the debate, this is simply an appeal to consequences. Sai brings up these abstract, esoteric, philosophical difficulties, like the problem of hard solipsism, whether we can ever really say that we know something to be true, and he's like, ha, you can't solve these difficulties. So what? What if we can't solve some of these difficulties? Maybe we just live in a godless universe where certain philosophical questions are fundamentally unresolvable. I also don't see how appealing to a god solves anything here. He points out that the atheist can't solve the problem of hard solipsism, but apparently what, the theist can? An audience member asks him to provide his disproof of hard solipsism, and his answer is far from convincing.
Sai, your arguments seem to revolve mostly around mocking and ad homineming Matt over...
Give me an example, please.
Let me finish my sentence and then I will. Over his statement that he could not disprove hard solipsism, which seems to imply to me that you have a disproof of hard solipsism, because if not, your mockery wouldn't make sense. So my question for you is, what is your disproof?
Revelation from God.
Really, revelation from God. So how does this process work? When you're sitting in front of the fireplace late at night in your bathrobe, does God softly whisper into your ear that we're not all brains in a vat, and does he assure you that we're not living in a Matrix-like simulation? What if he's lying to you? What if you're being deceived by God? Or what if it's actually Satan presenting himself to you as God? How could you reliably distinguish between the two? What if you're not actually receiving a revelation from God, but you're just hallucinating? Plenty of insane people over the years have claimed that God was speaking to them. Do we also trust the first-hand godly encounters of the serial killer? And if not, on what grounds do you reject their religious testimony while claiming yours is genuine? Couldn't they claim the exact opposite, that theirs is genuine and that yours is the fake one? There is no testable, reliable way to verify these first-person religious experiences, so there's no good reason to trust them, especially if you're a third party who's simply being told about another person's alleged experience. And how could appealing to God possibly solve the problem of hard solipsism? If we were living in a simulation, couldn't the simulators just simulate the experience of a God communicating with you? Couldn't it be built into the simulation that a God comes to you and says you're not in a simulation, in a manner that feels very convincing to you? The appeal to God in this case solves absolutely nothing. Sai purports to have a way out of these difficulties, however. According to him, God has revealed things to him in a way that he can be certain.
You've said that God reveals things to you in such a way that you can be certain.
To everybody.
Well, for now, we'll just stick with you.
Well, I say he reveals things to everyone such they can know.
I understand that.
That's what I say. Yes.
How does that work?
That would be a very good question if you could know that you were in a brain in a vat.
So he completely dodges the question, prompting Matt to ask once again,
which is, how is it possible for God to reveal things to you in such a way that you can be certain?
Because he's God. God can do that.
Oh, okay.
You'll be shocked to hear that I'm not convinced by this. He claims that he's certain, but merely professing certainty doesn't mean that these alleged revelations are actually genuine. How strongly a person believes something is not a measurement of how true that thing is. You can find plenty of people who will express to you how certain they are that they were abducted by aliens. Should we therefore believe them? And again, I'm sure that the crazed religious serial killer would also claim certainty that God is communicating with him. Why don't Sai and I take a trip down to the insane asylum sometime, and have a nice chat with the straitjacket-wearing lunatic in a padded cell to hear all about his profound revelations from Jesus Christ? Plenty of Muslims or members of other religions completely at odds with Christianity would also claim the same things about their God, and presumably Sai would reject these testimonies. But if all we're doing is making unsubstantiated assertions, on what grounds would he do so? And how is the impartial observer expected to distinguish between these contradictory testimonies? Psy claims that he is certain about the authenticity of God's revelations to him. Okay, and I can claim certainty that he's full of shit. So now what? He says, aha, but I have God on my side. Okay, and what if someone says, I also have God on my side, and he tells me that you're extra wrong? Appealing to God in this way doesn't get us anywhere, and it doesn't actually solve any of the difficulties that Psy claims it does. I'm on Patreon. There's a link in the description if you'd like to support my content. I would really appreciate it. There's also social media links in there if you want to follow me there. I'm trying to build up some of those followings. I would really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe for more videos if you haven't already. Hit the bell, hit the like button, post a fucking comments. All that fun stuff that's standard on YouTube. You know the fucking drill. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this.